Now, controversial constitutional changes in Zimbabwe, the DRC and Somalia have drawn sharp reactions. Now, critics warn that democracy is under threat, but supporters argue that they need strong, proven leaders during times of crisis. We dive into the political debate. In February this year, the Zimbabwe's cabinet approved the draft Constitution Amendment Bill number 3. If enacted, it will stretch presidential and parliamentary terms from 5 to 7 years and replace direct presidential elections with the parliamentary selection process. Now, this means President Emmerson Mnangagwa's tenure could extend until 2030. This sparked both a legal and political outcry across the country.
The proposed amendments are illegal and unconstitutional in that they infringe the term limitation provisions of the Constitution, and more importantly, they seek to do them outside, two referendums. The first referendum approving the removal of the term limit. The second referendum approving the incumbent to benefit from the amendments.
A president should not rule for a long time, and it's preferable to serve for a short time and give others a chance. It's not normal for a president to serve for like 40 years when we are in a crisis.
In March, the Somali parliament approved constitutional changes that include direct multi-party elections, expanding presidential and parliamentary terms from 4 to 5 years, while barring top government officials from having dual citizenship and even foreign spouses. But violence erupted ahead of planned protests over President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's mandate after his term expired in May.
We will not accept anyone seeking leadership through the use of weapons. The era of the gun is over. Today is the final day. The weapons we have seized are illegal arms that opposition fighters were using in combat. We recovered them from places where they had been hidden, and they are in large numbers.
Now, meanwhile, on June 9th, the DRC Parliament passed a bill that could change the constitution. Pending a referendum, President Felix Tshisekedi could seek a third term after his tenure ends in 2028.
For me, if there is to be any change, revision, or whatever needs to be done, it will never be done without consulting the population, the Congolese people, that is to say, through a referendum.
But opposition lawmakers boycotted the vote, which came days after pro- and anti-government protesters clashed over plans to change the presidential term limits.
Convinced that the authoritarian drift undertaken by Mr. Felix Tshisekedi's regime through his initiative to change the constitution constitutes an act of rebellion against the republic and a declaration of war on the Congolese people.
Now let's hear more from Felix Ndahinda, a researcher and analyst on the Great Lakes region. He joins me from Tilburg, Netherlands. Ndahinda, thank you so much for joining us here on Africa Matters. Straight into it, Ndahinda, generally, I mean, there has been, countries deciding to change presidential term limits or even weaken the constitutional provisions. Has this term limits, these changes that are being done, worked for African countries in your assessment?
Well, it's really doubtful to generalize in experiences. There have been places where they have changed constitution and term limits and no turmoil, let's say, unfollowed. But that being said, I guess this is symptomatic more of the governance issues that you have in specific countries, and these changes are responding to certain given governance challenges that you have in specific contexts. Now, what matters most in other contexts is really how much whatever change there is seen as either legitimate or not, either within the broader population or the political class. So I can't respond to that in the generality that it has worked or not worked. But we know that from a very constitutionalist point of view, that it's always seen with suspicion whenever there is that kind of triggered or engineered constitutional change, especially of term limits. And it's seen always as self-serving for the rulers. And whatever that happens then really is most of the time contested. And subject, of course, to turmoil within the country. In most places, at least empirically, you have seen that this has led to some kind of more contestation than not.
All right, and you've mentioned something about legitimate. So at what point can we say that this decision, the decision of trying to interfere with the constitutional provision is legitimate? At what point do we say, or can we say this is legitimate?
Well, really, that's a fair question. We know that most constitutions do provide for ways in which they can be amended or changed. So that's valid not only in African context, but also elsewhere on other continents. So, for example, there was a given time when in France, the constitutional term for the president was 7 years, and then they had to change it to 5 years and so on. And that's not very long ago. So even in established democracies, these kind of changes do occur. But most of the time, it's seen as less legitimate when it is done most of the time by an incumbent, or is seen as really intended to serve the incumbent in order to extend the mandate beyond what was constitutionally provided. So you cited a number of, whether it's in Zimbabwe or in the DRC, the examples that you have cited. It's clear that all of these provisions are going towards amending what was existent, and they clearly are intended to serve those who are in place now. And that is most of the time subject to contestation, as we have seen, for example, in the most case I'm most knowledgeable with the DRC, where the opposition, but also a lot of people on the streets have been contesting that, and even has led reportedly to deaths.
So what does it mean for the people of these two countries, not only, and not just for the elite?
Very important question there. In Zimbabwe, for example, we know that these changes are occurring possibly to serve an 83-year-old incumbent who has already stayed in power nearly now in his second term. That means that if he's to go until 2030, he will be quite very old in power. And rationality dictates that someone that old cannot really be taking sound decision, or at least be in a position to really effectively rule, or be in a position rather than then serving a whole political class. Now, in the DRC case, we know that the change that is occurring, basically the president has been on the record saying that he's not triggering that, but he's not opposed to being given that mandate by the people to change the constitution and serve a third term to which he did not have a right to. Now, the contestations are very clear in the street, especially the political class. All of the opposition is boycotting this. The very prominent members of the opposition have been beaten up, like Fayulu and others, in the streets protests. And you have seen people, of course, also ordinary people, very much protesting this, especially those in support of the opposition. But beyond that, in a country like the DRC, this is happening where you have a partition of the country already with provinces in the east, which are not really even under the control of the government. How effectively the government will even organize a referendum is planning to organize in order to give the president that kind of chance to stand for a third, when even he doesn't control at this particular moment, or doesn't even have an army. Most of the time he has been relying on mercenaries and foreign armies like Uganda and Burundi to fight on the different fronts. It's very doubtful how much that kind of move can have a legitimacy, either for the people, but also for the whole country, which is not even, let's say, under the effective government control.
All right, let's shift our focus now to Somalia, and let us to have a look at what we had, given our viewers in terms of the breakdown, what Somalia has done following the Parliament's decision to approve the constitutional changes. That includes, we have the direct multi-party elections, expanding presidential and parliamentary terms from 4 to 5 years, and also barring top government officials from having dual citizenship and even, foreign spouses. So with all these changes that, members of parliament of this country did, what does it mean for the citizens of Somalia?
It's very complicated, and this tells some story about how especially countries intend to engage mostly with their diasporas. We know that Somalia, due to the long-term wars that have happened in the country since the end of the 80s, is one of the African countries with the largest diasporas across the world, including in neighboring countries. Now, many of those Somali diasporas have acquired foreign citizenships, and barring people, therefore, from holding dual citizenship clearly is something that may be intended to let's say, stop a very tremendous influence of dual citizen Somalians in diasporas. But also, I think, at least from my own perspective and from experience studying other contexts, most countries today understand the importance of mobilizing diasporas for at least investment in the countries of origin. That was more the move happening on the African continent, recognizing that diasporas can play roles domestically. Now, this move goes in the opposite direction, and to me, that might be quite very counterproductive and narrow-sighted from the current political class in Somalia.
And so, when some of these leaders have chosen to amend the constitution so as to stay in power, some people have termed it as a constitutional coup, and we've also seen that, in a DRC. Is this what is happening, and what are the consequences of that?
Sticking to the example just you gave, for example, the DRC, we know that the current president took power after tremendous pressure from the international community against his predecessor, Joseph Kabila, not to change the constitution in order to do what was known at the time in French as glissement. He was intending to go on for a couple of more years. And there was quite tremendous pressure, to the extent that, at least it's reported now, including by the head of the Electoral Commission, that a deal, a kind of fraudulent deal, was struck between the incumbent and current President Tshisekedi in order to make a transfer that would actually be a win for both parties. Now, that pressure was exactly against not changing the constitution. Now, the mere fact that the successor now is intending to do precisely the same move, invoking some popular, let's say, legitimacy, or even some dubious, let's say, justification around the content of the constitution in place already since 2006, which was in itself a product of a certain given political settlement after many wars. That is very much doubtful whether that would lead indeed to, let's say, anything good, other than indeed what may be termed as a constitutional coup, and possibly have very much destabilizing effect not only on the country but also the political class, and with, of course, more victimization of the citizens of the country.
All right, Felix Ndahinda, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us here on Africa Matters. He's a researcher and analyst on the Great Lakes region, and was talking to us from Tilburg, Netherlands. Thank you once again. Still to come here on Africa Matters.
I'm Alexandria Majala in Nairobi's Dandora, where families must choose between their child's paycheck today or their future tomorrow.
To South Africa, where, according to official data released in May, 58 people are murdered every day. The government deployed around 2,200 soldiers to help police curb crime early this year, but it has done little to curb the violence. Vicky Stark spoke to a pastor in Cape Town who spent over 2 decades negotiating with gangs while preaching peace.
When he's not mediating to stop gang violence, you'll find Pastor Craven Engel at this church in Hanover Park in Cape Town on a Sunday morning. He says the soldiers deployed as part of Operation Prosper to help the police fight crime need training to better understand the communities they are operating in. In the first week after their deployment to this region on April 1st, 36 people were killed in gang-related violence in Cape Town, according to a senior lawmaker, and the violence still persists.
Across the whole of Hanover Park, they were shooting for the whole day yesterday. So I wouldn't think that the guys are actually intimidated by the army. But, because their social behavior needs to be spoken to. Somebody needs to speak to them about what's the gripe amongst them, what's the issue amongst them, how can the conflict be mediated.
Craven says over the past 24 years, he and his team have helped around 430 gangsters, who he prefers to call high-risk individuals. They've moved out of gangs and into sustainable livelihoods. Albert Matthews is one of them. He was just 13 years old when he was recruited to sell drugs. But today he works with Pastor Engel on a youth economic empowerment program to keep children who are targeted from the age of 8 out of gangs.
If there's someone that is caught up in drugs, I believe that we that come out of it, we are able to help them because we can relate. There's things that we can relate to. And I think it's important that the young adults of Hanover Park know that change is possible, and we need to be that message to them.
There's little doubt their work is making an impact, but they say what's needed to bring broader change is genuine political will.
What needs to happen is we need to be honest about where we are at. Where does guns come from? Where does the drugs come from? Who allows it to enter into our system, into our ports?
There's an ongoing inquiry into corruption in South Africa's criminal justice system, which has heard explosive testimony about how politically connected criminals are allegedly being protected. The allegations have unsettled many South Africans, and while some are hopeful and desperate for the soldiers to make a difference, many believe the deployment is little more than a band-aid over a gaping wound. Vicky Stark, Africa Matters, Cape Town, South Africa.
Now, a joint 2025 report by the International Labour Organization and UNICEF found that African countries have the highest rate of child labour globally. A staggering 92 million children are trapped in child labour, unlike other regions. Now, the practice has become even more widespread on the continent over the last decade, and efforts to solve the issue are leading to problems of their own, as Alexandria Manjala finds out in Nairobi.
In Dandora, a low-income settlement on the outskirts of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, many children here work to help their families put food on the table. Virginia Wairimu's family shares the same struggle. She used to work at a dump site with her children until a fatal incident forced them to pivot.
The reason why my children and I stopped working at the dump site is because one of my children, my son, was run over by a garbage truck. So every time I try to go there, I feel so sad.
Now, she and her children make a living washing people's clothes and selling beadwork. The International Labour Organization estimates that up to 1.5 million Kenyan children are engaged in child labour. Roughly 8.5% of children in Kenya aged 5 to 17 are working in some way or another in fields like agriculture, domestic work, commercial sexual exploitation, and livestock herding. Saidi Hassan also grew up in Dandora. The 26-year-old decided to start a community-based organization that gives children who work at the dump site a shot at content creation to offer an alternative revenue stream while capitalizing on their hobbies and passions.
It's probably a bit challenging more because at
the dump site, things are very challenging. You find kids sorting trash to collect plastics and glass so they can sell to recyclers. But the environment is very competitive and unsafe. Most of the time, the bigger kids take from the younger ones after a hard day's work, so there's also conflict.
Dandora Dump Site Kids has garnered close to 200,000 followers on TikTok and nearly 32,000 on Instagram.
First of all, the Dandora Dump Site Kids has helped me grow. They've opened my individual social media accounts for me, and now I have 24,000 followers on TikTok. I also enjoy spending time with my peers and learning dance moves from one another. We are like a family, yeah.
Hanifa takes whatever little she makes from creating content and brings it home to her mom. But in trying to alleviate the problem of child labor in its neighborhood, this solution introduces a new one.
We don't have specific laws in Kenya as of now regulating children in digital economy or creative economy, digital creative economy. The Children's Act in Section 18 of the Children's Act prohibits children from being economically exploited.
Beyond the risk of child content creators being commercially exploited, there's also the risk of online harm, including cyberbullying. Parents here are torn between the cultural expectations that children should contribute to the household budget and hopes for their future. Alexandria Majala, Africa Matters, Nairobi, Kenya.
Now, staying in Kenya, we head along the coast where fishermen are pulling in empty nets and struggling to protect their livelihoods. But digital technology is now helping them improve their catches while preventing overfishing. Hope Kirubi tells us more.
On the shores of Mombasa County, a successful day at sea is no longer measured by luck. It is measured by data. For generations, overfishing has emptied these waters, leaving small-scale fishers struggling to get a decent catch. Today, mobile phones are a basic requirement along with fishing nets.
Through that data, we were able to come up with a management plan that we should keep that octopus reserve. So that helped us know that in those rocks there are octopuses again. So if the beach monitoring unit closes that place for 3 months, fishermen will find octopuses that are well grown and get money that will improve their livelihood.
Every catch brought ashore is weighed, measured, and logged into digital devices. This real-time information allows local fishermen to see exactly when a species is in danger so that they can temporarily close those areas to fishing.
Data collection has enabled us to see that illegal fishing can be eliminated. The collectors explain that fish pierced by illegal spear guns are usually rejected in the market. This helps motivate us fishermen to stop using unwanted gears while fishing.
But while these strict bans help protect future stocks, they also restrict a vital source of daily food and money for local families.
Having known from their data that actually this area is a good habitat for octopus, they were able to close and solve the problem of declining sizes. And that's how one classical case of how we have used catch data to advance fisheries management in our community.
As fish stocks decline across the Western Indian Ocean, local fishermen in Mombasa County are focusing on growing their fish bank. Hope Kirubi, Africa Matters.
Well, U.S. immigration policies, including travel bans, have made it increasingly difficult for Africans to obtain visas to cheer their teams at World Cup venues. But that hasn't stopped African teams from holding their own against previous football champions. And people are still talking about one particular footballer. He stopped the mighty Spain on the pitch and then took social media by storm. Cape Verde goalkeeper Josima Diaz delivered a man-of-the-match performance in his country's historic World Cup debut. Grace Kuria-Kanja has the story.
In the football world, Josimar Diaz is simply known as Vozinha. The 40-year-old wears the iconic #1 jersey, traditionally reserved for a team's first-choice goalkeeper. Today, he's being celebrated as a national hero for delivering a clean sheet. While Cape Verde made its World Cup debut against 2010 champion Spain in its opening match on June 15, 7 crucial saves from Vozinha secured a historic goalless draw.
The dream come true. We compete against Spain, and it's one of the best national team in the world. And we are very, very happy, very proud of all of the players, all the people from Cape Verde.
The unexpected result has raised hopes that Cape Verde, a nation of about 500,000 people, can reach the knockout stage.
Well, I didn't expect us to be holding our own in such a highly contested and difficult match. We're facing one of the strongest national teams in the world, right? But we trust that we will keep going and hold on throughout the game. Thanks to Vozinha's performance, who is for now one of the best players on our team.
And there is more. Vozinha has gone viral on social media. In 24 hours, Vozinha's Instagram following soared to over 6 million and counting. A quick look through his post revealed behind-the-scenes training sessions, match-day moments, and expressions of national pride that are now resonating with audiences around the world.
I cry because I grew up with my grandfathers, or grandparents, and unfortunately they are not here. They died a few years before, and they was everything for me. They give everything for me, for my life, and also because my mom, she didn't manage to be here because the money you have to pay for the visa, we didn't manage on time, and I would like she to be here, but I'm very happy also.
His rise underscores how African players are increasingly leveraging social media to build global fan bases. Cape Verde will next face Uruguay and Saudi Arabia in Group H, and all eyes will undoubtedly be on the goalkeeper who has already etched his name into his country's football history. Grace Kuria-Kanja, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode and leave your comments on our Africa Matters YouTube page or on X. Thanks for watching. And it's goodbye from me, Brenda Zeda Radido.